Welcome, and thank you for standing by. I would like to remind all parties that your lines have been placed on listen only until the question and answer portion of today's conference. At that time, if you're wishing to ask a question, please press *1 on your touch-tone phone, and please be sure that your telephone is unmuted and clearly record your name at the prompt so that your question may be introduced. Today's conference is being recorded. If you should have any objection, you may disconnect at this time. It is now my pleasure to turn the call over to Ms. Dubis Correal. Thank you, ma'am. You may begin.
Thank you. Thank you, Emily. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dubis Correal, and I'm with the Office of Financial Education at the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau.
Hi, and I'm Dan Rutherford, also with the Office of Financial Education.
As I indicated, I'm with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, Office of Financial Education. Today's webinar is part of an ongoing educational series to help library staff build knowledge and become more comfortable helping patrons. Today's webinar will focus on having conversations about money and ways to make these conversations a little bit more comfortable. And we would love to hear from you about your experiences as we go through the webinar. We would have plenty of time for questions and answers, and we will open the lines when we're ready to hold discussions and take questions. When speaking, please keep your questions and comments brief so we can include as many people as possible. Also, provide your name and affiliation so we know who you are and where you're coming from. We're recording this webinar, so your questions and comments will be recorded too.
It generally takes a few weeks for us to review and post these recordings, so we ask that you please be patient. We will post the video in the Library Resources section of our website. The web address is on the screen. On that page, you'll also see our list of upcoming webinar topics. We plan to hold these webinars on a monthly basis, and the format should be fairly consistent with today's presentation. So if you haven't already done so, please send your contact information to financialeducation@cfpb.gov and ask to be added to our email list. If you add library webinars or something similar in the subject line, we'll be sure to include you in our future updates and announcements.
The good news is that you haven't missed much yet. This is the second webinar in our series, so there isn't a lot to catch up on. Our first webinar was an overview of the Community Financial Education Program, how it was developed, and how we plan to work with you and other libraries across the country. Today, we will focus on having discussions about money, and coming up in September, we'll discuss how to set and reach money goals. Our next webinar will take place on September 23rd from 2:30 to 3:30 p.m. We'll remind you about this at the end of the webinar, and we will also send an email to remind you. You can find our list of planned webinars for this series on our website.
Again, we want to make this as interactive as possible, so we will stop and have discussions and take questions along the way. But you can also ask questions using the Q&A window on your screen. So simply click the Q&A button and type in your question. When you click Ask, the question will appear on our screens, and we will respond either on the spot or during one of the Q&A sessions. So let's start the conversation off by asking the question, what are some money-related questions that you have gotten from patrons, and maybe what was your reaction? Share your story in the question box, and we'll read them in just a second.
So before we get started, I'd like to provide a quick update. You might remember that we started this project with the help of 9 libraries: Brooklyn, New York, College of Menominee Nation, Green Bay, Wisconsin, Columbus, Ohio, Florence and Georgetown, South Carolina, Fresno and San Francisco, California, Orlando, Florida, and Pelham, Alabama. Today, nearly 300 libraries have expressed interest in working with us to provide more financial education in their communities. These libraries contain more than 1,300 branches, so we're beyond our goal of 50 libraries for this year and well on our way of hitting our 2015 goal of reaching 500 libraries. So thank you for signing up to help communities by providing financial education. A few days ago, the CFPB launched a parent financial education awareness campaign. You can visit our website to see resources and information to help parents teach their children about money and how to provide good money examples every day. We also are conducting some in-person training across the country. If you're interested, you can reach us at financialeducation@cfpb.gov. And our travel budget is limited, but if you're able to invite your neighboring libraries or other libraries in your state, we might be able to conduct a training in your community. As always, we would like to remind you to visit consumerfinance.gov, library-resources, because we're updating this website on a monthly basis, and we want you to know that this is still a work in progress. So tell us what you think, what you don't like, your suggestions about program ideas and best practices.
Thanks for that update, Dubis, and thank you to everyone on the phone for your interest in financial education and for joining us today. So why don't we jump into the presentation, starting the conversation. The purpose of today's discussion is to increase your comfort level in talking about money and to provide you with some conversation tips and resources you can use in providing information. Why is this important? Because as we did our research talking to librarians and library staff about what could prevent them from providing help and information about money, we often heard was that it's just too difficult to talk about. It's too personal. Money is a touchy subject to a lot of people. But if you are not there to help empower your patrons and provide them with information, who will? Even if you don't know all the answers, you can provide them with good, unbiased information or referrals to other organizations in your community. When you provide this help, you are helping your patrons make better informed decisions, avoid misinformation or predatory practices. We don't want you to think you have to become a financial advisor or counselor. We know that you are not there to advise patrons on their individual circumstances. We just want to help you feel more comfortable talking about money issues so you can ask the right questions and deliver the best information and resources you can. Use this webinar series to become familiar with basic money topics. Check our list of upcoming webinars frequently. We've listed the topics we plan to cover over the next year, but the schedule may change. We also may invite special guests to make presentations along the way. Next, see what other resources are available to you. For example, the New York Public Library, in coordination with the Institute for Museum and Library Services, created a curricula for library staff called Money Matters Pro. You can find it pretty easily if you do a web search. There also are resources available on the American Library Association's Smart Investing at Your Library website. We are working with both the ALA and the IMLS in our efforts as well. Look at what's available in your library. Check out what books that you already have in your collections and what periodicals that are also available to you, and just take a few minutes to review what's there. Create a list of local agencies that you can refer patrons to, and we'll discuss this a little bit more later in the webinar. Other ways that you can help promote financial education would be to share the resources we've made available on our website, including free print materials, web links you can add to your website or reference list. Share your ideas for programs and best practices, and use the promotional materials we are creating to promote financial education in libraries, including a poster, 8.5 by 11 displays, standing table tents, bookmarks, and electronic banners and share graphics. A lot of these print materials, such as the posters and displays, will be available for order soon, so please stay tuned. Everyone has questions about money. Even the wealthiest people in the world may turn to someone when they have financial questions. It can be difficult, though, to talk about money, even with people who you know well. it can seem even more difficult to talk about it with patrons you don't know so well. It can feel uncomfortable to raise the topic of personal finance because it's deeply personal. Some topics can be stigmatizing, or you may not have all the knowledge or resources you need right at your fingertips. So let's stop here. Davis, have we got any comments or comments about money questions?
Yes, we have two examples. One is, can I still work when I'm receiving Social Security? How much can I earn? The other example that we got is, we get a lot of questions about income taxes.
So both of those are really good examples, and again, on our resources page or our list of program ideas, we actually included my Social Security program idea that you can implement at your libraries. You can contact your local Social Security office, and they might have folks who can come by and lead that presentation and do a sign-up day for you. So I would refer you to that resource. As far as the tax issues go, I'm sure many of you are familiar with the free tax forms that a lot of you already provide. The IRS has a really good website and good resources available. And again, you know, your local tax site or local VITA representative, Volunteer Income Tax Assistance Program. Many communities offer those free services every tax season, and that might be a good way for you to reach out to other members and other organizations in your community. So let's move on.
As you were speaking, Dan, I was sort of showing some of the web pages that could serve as resources for library staff.
So thanks, Dewis. The fact is, are we ready to go on? Okay, there we go. The fact is, you already may be talking with patrons about money issues and other personal issues. Talking about money gets easier if you approach financial issues in a non-judgmental way. Most people are working to get their financial houses in order, but even if you're among the few who have never had to struggle with money yourself, chances are you've seen someone you care about struggle with financial issues. Use those experiences that you've had in your life to help you understand where your patrons are coming from. When they feel that you respect them and that they can trust you, they will be more willing to open up. In return, when you're able to recognize their true questions and needs, you'll be able to deliver the information or help they want. And it's not just difficult for you to talk about money. It's often difficult for patrons to talk about money too. There's cultural and emotional differences that have to be considered. To get to the best answers, you have to spend a little time to understand and connect with your patrons' cultural and emotional values and needs around money. When we teach this material to social workers and volunteers, we suggest that they ask the following questions. What does money mean to you? What is the most difficult thing about money, saving, budgeting, etc. for you or for your family? What do you want your children to learn about money? What do you think they're learning from you now? So think about what could work in common situations in the library and how much of this background information you will need. This process or something similar helps you build empathy and understanding, and that will make your research for information more successful, and the information you provide more relevant, useful, and actionable. Differences in cultural values can affect financial behavior. For example, Western culture values individuality and personal well-being, which means it's generally considered appropriate for each person to support themselves financially. In some other cultures, family members support each other financially throughout their lives. If they save money, it may go to a family member they believe needs it. If a client chooses to spend his extra income on his extended family instead of saving it in an emergency fund, this doesn't mean that he has bad financial habits. Instead, he is just making financial choices in a different cultural context than you may be familiar with. Examine your own values. Being more aware of the values that you hold and understand Some of the experiences that first gave you a sense of their importance can help you realize when they are getting in the way of helping someone else. Knowing what your values are and where they came from does not mean that you have to give up on those values. It just means that while you are acting as a source of support and information, you will be better able to adopt your clients' or your patrons' points of view as you help them weigh the financial choices in their lives. Ask implication questions. Rather than telling someone which is a better course of action, ask questions that help tease out the risks and rewards of each choice. For example, if you continue on this path, what is the short-term gain and the long-term impact? Does this financial choice help you and your family get to where you want to go? Who in your life will be affected by this course of action and how? Then stop and listen and let that person tell you what is important. Help patrons examine their values and how they drive their financial decisions. Helping someone understand what drives his financial behavior is one of the most powerful outcomes you can achieve. This new insight will help your patron not only examine today's financial decisions, but also help him reevaluate other behaviors. So when do these conversations happen? Basically, they can fall into two scenarios. When patrons initiate a question, comment, or when they're looking for resources, or when you initiate by hosting financial or financially related programs and events. How do you start that conversation? Well, we reviewed that. Listen to patrons. Ask questions. Compliment and praise patrons for taking action and seeking out the information. It's always good to start with reinforcing the behaviors and things that they're already doing in their lives and building on that success. Share information and resources with patrons. One way you can introduce financial education topics is by embedding financial tips and other ideas into existing programs or services. For example, considerations might include promoting banking and saving with employment and job training programs, credit, debt, loan management with starting a business or buying a house, savings and financial assistance options with college preparation, online banking or financial software programs or apps with technology programs, and financial budgeting and management that ties in with hobbies. Dubis, do you have another example or two?
Yeah, I'd like to highlight actually two examples, and we learned about those when we were at the American Library Association annual conference at the end of June. And one of them is a very interesting program done by the Carmel Clay Public Library in Indiana. What they do, they have a program called Dine on a Dime, and what it does, it allows teenagers to make snacks that they will normally have to purchase. And what is good about it is that they can make those snacks for half the price. So the program is teaching budgeting and saving skills, and it's targeted to high school students. And what Brian was telling us is that it's not only attracting high school students, but also their parents. So this is sort of like a community event that they do on a regular basis. So that was a very interesting example. The other one was, as we were at the booth at the ALA conference, a librarian from New York came to our table, and she was telling us that someone approached her because this person wanted to open a savings account because he had won some prizes in Africa, and he had been asked to send some money. So the librarian recognized right away that this was a scam, and she was able to tell him not to do that. And what we're hearing is that librarians are sort of like in the front lines, and they're getting these kinds of questions. So the goal of this project is to equip librarians with unbiased resources.
If you all have any other examples that you would like to share, please enter them in the question block, and we'll share it with the group in a few minutes. So Dubis and I, as she mentioned, set up a booth at the ALA conference in June, and I can't tell you how many librarians rushed up to the table and said they were glad that we were doing this because they faced these kinds of questions all the time and didn't know how to respond. So we're here to help you with some of those responses, and this program and the resources that we provide will hopefully do some of that. For example, a common question is, how do I find out about my credit report? For immediate answers on credit reports or credit cards or other financial matters, you can turn to Ask CFPB, which is our Q&A database available on our website. Dubis, do you want to take us through a little bit of that?
Yes. So the tool is called Ask CFPB, and I just type credit reports, and I got a series of questions about credit. What is a credit report? One of the most popular questions in this database is, how do I get a copy of my credit report? And we provide that information here.
Right. The database, if we go back a page, can we go back to the intro page on Ask? So here you can see some of the various money topics and issues that are covered. We also break these out for special populations such as service members, students, older Americans, and parents. But you can see a pretty good collection of the various topics there, and each of those topics have a series of different questions. So if someone pops in and asks you a mortgage-related question or has a question about money transfers or related issues, you can just pop right into consumerfinance.gov/askcfpb. You should also recognize that some people may be ready for help, but not ready to come out right out and say it. These are opportunities that you can use to promote your program or other financial education help you can offer. So some of these comments and triggers or things you should listen for are comments like, boy, I wish I could afford that, or I'd like to be able to buy that, or, we need a bigger house. These are all sorts of ways that could open the door to a conversation about money and the chance for you to talk about some of the resources that you have available or, as I said, upcoming programs. Patrons may also come to you when they have problems. If they are experiencing problems with a consumer financial company, you can check our resources at consumerfinance.gov. That includes how to submit complaints, how consumers can share their stories, and good and bad, our Ask CFPB tool, which we just showed you, and we also have a HUD Housing Counselor search tool that can help you identify and locate HUD housing counselors in your communities or nearby. Also take a few minutes to learn what help is available from your state and local agencies. Financial education is a very big and confusing topic, and you certainly don't want to get in over your head. If you haven't already done so, build a local referral list to help. I would also recommend you download our Community Partnership Guidebook for libraries. It can help you think through local partnerships and contains a list of several national organizations that have local offices, plus suggestions for state and local agencies you should consider. The guidebook is available as a handout if you click the handout icon on your screen, or you can download it at this URL. Dubis, you want to? Dubis is going to bring it up for us here. So this was one of the things that was asked for by the libraries that we worked with. What we heard from many of them was that partnerships and community relationships have sort of evolved from simple handshakes and very casual relationships to more ongoing, lasting, and more formalized relationships. And what they had asked for was some guidance in what libraries should look for when working with financial colleagues or financial providers, education providers in the community, what they should check on, what they should consider when building programs, and we also wanted to provide sort of a head start by listing some national organizations that have fairly national representation across the country. And so The result of that was this guidebook. It's available, again, for download on our website or available in the handouts icon, under the handouts icon on the screen. So those are some of the resources that we also have available on our website. In that green box, you can see again the submit a complaint and ask CFPB tools that we'd already mentioned. We also have a really popular section on paying for college, which covers basically how to finance college and how to how to repay and the financing. And then another area there is a program that we've developed in cooperation with the FDIC called Money Smart for Older Adults that examines financial exploitation, elder financial exploitation, and those sorts of areas. Again, those resources and others are available in the resources section of our library resources website. Again, that's just a couple of pages from the resource guidebook, which we just showed you. And the next tool here is just a real simple referral resource worksheet that you can use to list out those local agencies or organizations that you would refer your patrons to. Again, if you haven't already done so. This is also available in the handout area of the webinar, so you feel free to download that as well. This may not be a complete list, and you certainly may want to add to it, so please feel free to just use this as a starting point. Again, you want referral partners to be high quality. That means that they should offer factual, accurate information and up-to-date information, and they should be unbiased. So that means not influenced by the factors that benefit them or are trying to sell products and services to patrons. So those are the two main factors that should be considered.
And I think the most important part here is how libraries are able to customize these materials for their community needs. I had the opportunity to address a group of business librarians in Niles, Illinois last week, and that was some of the conversations that they were having as to the use of local resources and customizing the resources that were provided at a national level so that it fit their needs.
Any comments or questions from our earlier?
No comments or questions.
Okay. All right. Well, to wrap up and to summarize, this is what we discussed. When starting or having money conversations, it's important to acknowledge and promote positive efforts. So recognize what your patrons are doing well, the fact that they're coming to you for help and taking that step, and show them that they've done other complex and complicated things in their lives, and that this if they can do those things, they can certainly tackle the question or the issue in front of them. Take the time to really understand and connect with your patrons' cultural and emotional values. Again, it's really important that we recognize and not be judgmental in the differences that we all have, the different perspectives that we all have on money. Share upcoming programs, resources, tools, and make referrals whenever possible. Again, if you're spending a lot of effort putting these materials together, or these programs together, and putting materials out for patrons to use, it's important that when they come to you and open that doorway for a conversation, that you be ready to provide the information and resources that they need. Also, help patrons find an outcome that works for them. Let them discover their own solutions, and help them ask questions that will drive them to those sorts of decisions. And follow up whenever possible.
And before we move to the next slide, we would like to highlight once again the program that we just launched. Statistics show that parents and children are sort of like the #1 visitors in libraries, And we wanted to make sure that you have these resources to share with them, because we really want to start the conversation so that parents can talk to their children about money.
The URL for this website is consumerfinance.gov/parents, P-A-R-E-N-T-S.
And it's just a good way to make the most of each conversation. So this could be one topic.
I think that wraps us up. If there are any other questions, Emily, we'd like to open it up for questions at this point.
Thank you, sir. At this time, anyone wishing to ask a question or make a comment, please press *1 on your touch-tone phone. Please be sure that your telephone is unmuted and clearly record your name at the prompt so that your question may be introduced. Again, it is *1 to ask a question. One moment, please, for the first question. And again, it is *1 if you wish to ask a question. One moment, please. And at this time, I'm showing no questions.
Okay. Well, we would again like to thank everyone for joining us. Our next webinar will take place again on September 23rd from 2:30 to 3:30, and we'll be discussing how to set and reach money goals. So thanks for your time. Thanks for your participation, and we look forward to working with you.
This does conclude today's conference. Thank you so much for joining. You may disconnect at this time.